After I felt in a drought of not being able to catch up with new anime trends, I realized I was losing interest in the medium in general. Which is kinda jarring seeing as I grew up watching and reading anime and manga. So I decided to go back in time and try to reignite that fading spark. In doing so, I decided to reread one of the greatest pieces of manga created. I went back to Berserk. And with such good timing, Berserk decided to become relevant again, after a long hiatus. What a time to be alive. You see, I wrote this draft for a similar script almost a year ago, but decided not to go through with it as I wasn't caught up with the series by more or less 45 chapters. Come back 2016, I decided to enhance this ode to Berserk, since a spew of news and content has been released since then. We got a new anime, which is a mixed bag that I'd like to get into briefly later, and an upcoming game, and monthly chapters. We finally get off the boat and shit is starting to go down. It's a good year to be a Berserk fan. You've probably heard of it, right? Maybe a friend has recommended you to read it. Maybe you scrolled through the Netflix anime section, and the first film might have caught your eye. Berserk is probably one of the most recognizable pieces of art out there. Every page is brought to life with such attention to detail sprinkled everywhere. It's hard to pass out on this epic fantasy. It's not just another dark and gritty edge fest, it's a dynamic plot with superb writing. The art is fresh and way ahead of its time, and is well known for being an inspiration to many other artists. It just gets better and better every chapter. The characters have depth and are so complex that it's hard to believe that these are just fictional characters. You get attached, and that's good. Berserk covers a multitude of themes we go through ourselves during our existence. Bonds, loneliness, survival, humanity, fates, and just like in real life, it's hard to explain just why we go through these hardships. It's all brought to life by the beautiful set pieces and art and emotional detail, down to the lips. Kentaro Miura pays a lot of attention to details of everything really. Every panel, every expression, every action just feels believable, authentic, and important. You get to see a massive world realized, even if it's hard to understand. Guts, our main character, has lost everything, twice. Even an arm and an eye. This guy gets it rough. His story is a tearjerker. After a terrifying and lonely childhood, Guts grows up to become a well-known mercenary for the Band of the Hawk. But he struggles to find equal footing with his leader Griffith, who he sees as a close friend. He decides to take his chances and follow his own dream in hopes to be able to be respected and earn the title of friend from Griffith. Griffith has this attachment to Guts that he honestly doesn't recognize until Guts' decision to leave. That leads to things to take a turn for the worst. Years after the big event, the world is introduced into dark spirits that try to halt Guts' journey. Guts becomes powered by revenge and fights apostles in search for Griffith. I like how Miura went into this with no plans at all for the story, but it ended up working really well. Like every story element was just perfect, it fit perfectly. And that's a big risk when it comes to making manga, but with all the years that's been in Berserk, everything fits perfectly. He doesn't even have an ending planned out, and that's kinda scary. Berserk is much more complex with multiple strings connected to a stick that explaining just what's going on in the world takes longer than reading it. Guts is strong and it's hard not to root him on to find some sort of resolution, some sort of happy ending. He's indestructible in a sense, and I mean this in his willpower to go against all odds. I mean, when is this guy never on his last legs of life? Although I do warn it takes a certain mental fortitude for the reader to endure the traumatic moments of this series. It's graphic. It's ugly, and it shows everything. That means no blood piñatas, like some other works of arts. But even with all the violence and the dark events presented in front of us, it can actually be super lighthearted, and it's uplifting at times. It's honestly hard to believe that this image and this one are from the same manga. The latest chapters have given every reader time to relax and lose tension, and that's weird. But it's the reason I adore this series for its unique approach to epic fantasy. Reading up on the creator is pretty much as interesting as reading Berserk itself. His inspirations for creating Berserk come from a lot of other works he likes reading and other aspects from his own life. I find it amusing that the Band of Hawk are actually inspired by the friends in high school he grew up with, stating that, quote, "Back in the 80s, boys were really obsessed with stuff like how good their friends were at things, how highly they ranked in comparison to their friends, etc. For boys, friendship isn't about consoling each other, sometimes you even try to take the other guy down a peg or two. But to break away from these friends would feel like admitting defeat, and you do help each other when you find some sort of goal. That's where the Band of Hawk comes from. That quote really represents the type of relationship Griffith and Guts have during the Golden Age arc all the way down to the Eclipse. It's almost as if it's a constant race of each other's feeling, an invisible conflict crafted from miscommunication that led to resentment of each other. It's hard to really explain what Guts meant to Griffith because Guts had so much power over him, enough to even stray him from his original goal. While Guts, on the other hand, thought it would be for the best for him to chase his own goal. He never had the chance to understand just how much of an importance he was to Griffith. It's that cause and effects that would change the whole world in front of them. I appreciate Berserk because it's changed a lot of how I think when it comes to writing stories. It really teaches you that focusing on character, emotion, and actions can really create some amazing human characters. It's kinda sad that the complexity of the series have made it kind of hard to adapt it into a full-fledged animation. It's baffling just how many attempts have fallen flat when converting the manga into an anime. The original run was decent, but it lacked a lot of story elements that are pretty important, and even the removal of a certain character. The movies, although excellent in quality, they also skipped out and felt more so like the Evangelion reboot films. The source is there, but the characters still feel more like a shallow version of themselves in comparison to the manga. The most recent adaptation was the mixed bag Berserk 2016. As the first episode hit, I was very confused on how they decided to start everything. Merging parts that happened earlier with characters that come in later was very strange. The direction was often hard to follow and felt messy, but after watching every episode after, I realized that after all the setup, it followed the manga very closely and even had the iconic panels recreated. I would say it's the closest to the source we've ever gotten, but its direction and art and overall structure needs an overhaul, but I still enjoy it. I still tune in every Friday to watch it, so it's doing something right. Or is it just a desperation for anything Berserk? I don't really know. But what I do know is what Miura has created will always be something up for discussion. People can go on and on about Berserk for days, kinda like how I am, and that's because it's such a breathtaking, thought-provoking work that hasn't even shown signs of ending yet. It's hard to tell just how Berserk is gonna end, but I'm amped for it. I really hope Guts gets what he wants in the end and there's a resolution between everyone. And I really just want to give Guts and his party a giant hug.